This is Rob Tebbutt for Boxing Social in association with Betfred. Delighted, as always, to be joined by trainer, manager, boxing aficionado, Tony Sims. We're here in the Lawrence Okolie Christoph Glavatsky bubble in London. How are you, Tony? Nice to see you.
Yeah, I'm fine, thanks, Rob. You?
I'm very well, thanks. Very well. Even better to see Mr. Joe Cordina back in action this weekend on the Okolie Glavatsky undercard. We briefly spoke about it off camera, but be good to get him back in the ring after what he admitted to himself in the press conference today has been a bit of a frustrating period.
Yeah, you know, he's had an hand injury, so he's had that operated on, and that was a successful operation done by Dr. Mike Hayton, who's the best surgeon in the country at doing hands, and he's got over that, and he's been training and sparring, and it's all good. So he's ready to go on Saturday night and get a few rounds under his belt. The opponent he's fighting is a durable opponent, good opponent. He's only lost twice out of 19 fights, and both of them was for the European title, lost on points. So yeah, he's a decent opponent to come back on.
Now, obviously, this last 12 months or so has been disruptive for a lot of fighters. Nobody's really been as active as they'd like to have been. But for Joe, obviously, other stages of his career, you mentioned the hand injury there, he's not been able to get the fights that we all know to get him to show what we all know he's capable of. How important is it now that he gets the rounds in this weekend and can start to push on with his career?
It's very important, because he stayed amateur to go to the Olympics, because that's what his dream was, and perhaps he might have stayed amateur a little bit too long, but he pursued his dream, went to the Olympics. Unfortunately, he never medalled there, but he still achieved what he set out to do, and then he's turned professional, and we was getting him through them fights, on a quick route, really. If you look at it, he won the British Commonwealth titles really quickly. And, obviously because of COVID and the hand injury, it's put him back a bit. But I think you'll see this year, once he fights Saturday night, he gets a win there, gets a few rounds under his belt, I think you'll see Matchroom push him on further into big fights. I think they've got big names lined up for him and big fights lined up for him this year.
You mentioned today in the press conference about super featherweight being one of the deepest divisions, one of the most exciting divisions in the sport. Just how much more effective is Joe Cordina going to be after he's obviously stepped down from lightweight, had that great performance against Enrique Tinoco? How much more effective is he at 130?
I think it was his weight to begin with. It's just it is when the fighters get deep into camp, and then the calories have to cut right down low. It's very difficult, especially with the lighter ones. They're eating a very, very low calorie diet and still having to push hard. And obviously, the fighters at the lighter weights, their output and their punch output and everything they do is a lot more than the heavier weights. So they feel the pinch a little bit more. So I think, Joe started off at lightweight, wasn't dieting the same as a lot of the other boys in the gym. Obviously, I was eating meals with him and watching what he was eating. He was eating more than me, so he was making the lightweight too comfortable. And I think when he boxed Gavin Gwynn for the British title, I think he then sort of realised he wasn't that weight, And I said to him afterwards, look, what I've been saying to you is, Gavin Gwynn's a big lightweight, but there are bigger lightweights than that, over in the States and Mexico, they're big fellas, they're draining down from welterweight, and really you are a super featherweight. So, he agreed with me, and he moved down quite comfortably, really, and I think you'll see a more powerful Joe Cordina, with that same skill set. I think he's come on since last year. As a pro, he's obviously been working hard still, and he's been sparring in the gym, so I think he's come on, but he needs to obviously get the ring rust off of himself and get the rounds under his belt. I think this opponent will probably take him the distance, and it'll be good 10 rounds under his belt.
Is that, you mentioned there, is that what you're looking for this weekend? You're looking for him to get the rounds, but I'm sure you're not looking for something too competitive, hopefully not. Or is it a case of, the platform's there, he's boxing on Lawrence Okolie, his ex-team, GB makes undercard, go out there and make a statement? Or is it just about getting the rounds in, knocking off that ring rust, as you said, before we're moving on into bigger fights in 2021?
You don't get paid for overtime in this game, as they say, and, if you got the opportunity to win the fight early and it's there, then you've got to take it. So he's not going to be looking to just do rounds. But looking at the opponent, you know, he's a big super featherweight. As I say, he's been in with good fighters and gone a distance with them. I mean, Sami Azani, the European champion, he had a good fight with him and lost on points. So, you know, I think he's a dual opponent. As I say, I think, you know, he's got a good chance of getting the 10 rounds done, which won't hurt Joe, you know what I mean? He needs the rounds, and I think from then we'll look to push on to, obviously, a bigger name opponent in his next fight.
From one super featherweight charge to another, Martin J. Ward, we briefly spoke off camera about the fact that we've seemingly been waiting for him to be getting into a position to box for a world title now for quite some time. Where are we with Martin J. Ward?
Yeah, so he's got the final eliminator for the IBF. We've known that for a little while, but we've been waiting to see the outcome of, obviously, the Jojo Diaz and Rakhimov fight. As we know, it was a draw. Jojo Diaz never made the weight, so Rakhimov gets a vacant title shot now against the next in line, who's a Japanese guy called Oguara or something like that, and Ogawa, yeah. And so they fight for the vacant title. Next in line is Martin, and then the one after that is a South African called Azinga Fuzali, his name is, and Southpaw, good fighter. He fought Rakhim before in the eliminator, was winning every round against Rakhim, just got buttoned like in the 8th or 9th round, but you know, he's a slick fighter, Southpaw. So Eddie, I was only talking to Eddie this week about the date of the fight, and he said it's looking like either May the 15th in the UK or May the 26th in the States, depending on the entrance for the South Africans, whether they can come into this country by that time. But they're the two dates that he's put to me. So as you say, Martin Ward will finally get his chance to go into that final eliminator. And he's, as you say, he's waited a long time. I mean, he hasn't boxed now for 13 months. So, you know, he needs to take that opportunity with both hands and push on in his pursuit of his world title, you know. And he's been a pro since like 2012. He's won everything. You know, he's won British, Commonwealth, European. He's won all the international titles. He's won everything he could possibly win on these shores. So the only title that's eluding him is this world title, and you know, he's finally going to get his shot at the final eliminator. So he's nearly there.
While we're on all things super featherweight, let's talk about the knockout of the year, if nothing else. Earlier on this year in the super featherweight division, Oscar Valdez versus Miguel Burchell. Going into the fight, many people, myself included, considered Miguel Burchell the puncher in there. That's not quite what we saw on the night. Brilliant performance from Oscar Valdez to win the WBC title.
Oh, unbelievable. I mean, beforehand, I don't know anybody who fancied Valdez to win that fight. And you know, I thought Burchell, watching him in previous fights, he's a machine. You know, he walks through opponents. His work rate is second to none. He gets inside and he just mixes it up. You know, he's a real machine. And I just didn't see Valdez. Valdez being big or strong enough to hold him off for the 12 rounds. But I think he shocked everybody. You know, he caught Burchell in the second round, hurt him badly. I mean, number one, Harry got up from that shot, and number two, Harry just made it back to the corner on them legs. You know what I mean? So, fair play to Burchell. You know, it shows you what a true world champion he is as well. But I mean, take all that off to Valdez. What a great performance! Great performance. As you say, it probably go down as knockout of the year.
And a magnificent game plan constructed by, of course, Eddie Reynoso. We've seen the work that he's done with Canelo Alvarez, he's obviously with Ryan Garcia and Andy Ruiz, but him, by his own admission, he sees that as the greatest coaching performance of his career. With your coach's hat on, looking at that, how much credit does he deserve for the game plan?
Oh, you know, loads of credit, and you don't realise what trainers have to go through with their fighters to be able to do a game plan like that. You know, he's obviously watched Burchell so many times, and he's watched him and took pieces away and took that to the gym and drummed it into Valdez, you know, every day on a day in day out basis. And you know, as you say, that performance there. Well, Ronaldo's had great performances all through his career. You know, with Canelo. You know, we've got to see Canelo as a pound for pound best fighter in the world. You know, so. you know, hats off to Renal. So he's a great trainer, and I think he proved his worth in that fight as well. Not just Canelo. He's got, you know, Ryan Garcia. What a performance that was against Luke Campbell. I don't know whether everybody fancied Ryan Garcia to knock Luke Campbell out. I certainly didn't. So, you know, the performances that his fighters are putting in this year are incredible, and you know, hats off to him.
Back to yourself, Conor Benn. Actually, no, we're going to go in order. Next weekend, Ted Cheeseman against Jj Metcalf. One or two murmurs around that that's going to be fight of the night in the Rumble on the Rock. How's Ted looked in preparation?
Ted's good, you know. He was ready for March the 6th, and I'll give him a few days off when that fight was cancelled, and then he's come back into the gym and he's ready to go. I mean, you know, he's always in great fights, as we know. The Sam Egerton fight was like, you know, it was another great fight of the year, and you know, Ted's always in them sort of fights. It's just the way he fights, you know. And Metcalf's a great fighter. I think, you know, he's unbeaten in 21 fights. Son of Shane Neary, who's a great fighter, and you know, it's going to be. I think it's going to, like you say, probably be fight of the night. I think at some time in the fight they're going to end up going toe to toe, and you know, I think it's a well-matched fight. I think it's a 50-50 fight. We don't know the full potential of Metcalf yet. Obviously, his biggest opponent was Jason Wellborn before Ted. So really, Ted's his highest-ranked opponent he's boxed. So until you get in with an opponent like that, you don't know the potential of the fighter. Whereas Ted's been in with a lot of good fighters. I think this is like his 8th title fight in a row, 12-round fight in a row, you know, and they're all good fighters that he's been in with, so we know what stage Ted's at. It's just where Metcalf is, you know, and this is a big jump up for Metcalf. So, you know, as you say, everyone's looking forward to that fight, and I think it's going to be a real good fight.
You mentioned Jj Metcalf, son of Shane Neary, great fighter in his own right. What people probably aren't familiar with is, on the Matchroom Elite Boxing Gym, you have your combinations from fighters. Shane Neary's on there. What combination have you got for Shane Neary on your wall?
Yeah, well, his name's Jimmy Neary, his real name, but Jimmy's an old friend of mine. I go back, you know, a long way with Jimmy, and I've known him when he was in his fighting days. I was actually ringside when he fought Mickey Ward, and you know, he's a great fighter and a lovely man as well, you know, and you know, it's strange that one of my fighters are going to fight his son, but you know, that's boxing, and you know, like you say, got one of his combination on the wall, and like all respect to them both, you know, and I think it's just going to be a cracker of a fight.
The week after, Conor Benn versus Sammy Vargas, another step up. Rightly so. You've been credited as the man who's, you know, helped Conor and develop from basically raw novice with not much experience into what we saw last time out against Sebastian Formella. It was a well-rounded fighter, career best performance so far. How much more has he still got to give, and what performance can we expect from him against Sammy Vargas?
Oh, there's loads more to come from Conor Benn. You know, he's got the potential, I believe, to be a world champion, and I'll never say that lightly either, because I know how hard it is to get to that world title level. But you know, he's developing a good boxing brain on him now, you know, and that's what I wanted in the beginning to bring out of him, because when you always see the son of a great fighter, you always expect the same fighter to come out as that mould, and you know, Nigel Benn was like one of my favourite fighters of the day, you know, and good friends with Nigel, been friends with Nigel way before Conor was ever born, and you know, I thought Nigel was incredible. The fights he was in was incredible, but I wanted to put boxing ability into Conor. I wanted to put defensive awareness into him, and Nigel wanted that as well. So that's what we've worked on, and you know, he's developing nice in the gym. He's like everything in the gym that we've been going through. His ability to slip and slide punches and block and using his feet, all them defensive abilities that he needs when you move up to world level, and he's learning his trade all the time doing that, and he's got the power of his dad as well. He's got that sort of freaky power that when he lands on people, you know, he can put them away with one punch. You know, he's very heavy-handed, so he's 24, so he's developing into a man now, you know, and each fight I think we should see a further development in Conor's ability, boxing ability, and you know he's worked a lot on his jab over the past year as well. So, you know, by boxing better opponents, he gains the experience from them that they've got. Obviously, Vargas has been in with all the highest ranked opponents at welterweight, great fighters he's been in with, you know, and you know, Conor needs to take that experience of being in a ring with someone like him and learning from that fight. There'll be stages in the fight where it gets hard for him, but they're the stages that you learn and come through them. And, you know, I'm looking forward to showcasing his skills on the night.
Considering where you had him when he turned over, and also the expectations that come with being Nigel Benn's son, if you are able to get him to that world championship and he wins a world title, where would that rank considering the other fighters that you've had in your career and the other achievements you've had as a trainer?
Rank, you know, really high. I mean, I have done it once before. I had Lee Purdy, who only boxed on unlicensed shows, never boxed amateur. He had a few unlicensed shows and become British champion, become IBF international champion, and then fought Davin Alexander for the world title. So I've took a raw 18-year-old on before who really had no ability and turned him into something that got onto the world level, you know. And I think Conor will go I believe Conor will go that one step further and win the world title. I think he's getting there now. I think people are believing in him. You know, whereas you say before when he first turned pro and people was watching him, they didn't really believe. They just thought, he's his son. He's not going to be like Nigel. But I think people are starting to get behind him now, believing that he is really going to be the real deal. And, you know, I think like he's ranked in 2 of the governing bodies now. I think he's 14 with the IBF and number 11 with the WBA. He's overall on a box rec. I think he's like number 25 in the world on box rec. So all of a sudden we're moving into the right direction, fighting named fighters that everybody knows. Everybody on these shores have seen Vargas fight Amir Khan, put Amir Khan on the floor. Everyone knows who he is. Everyone knows he's a dangerous opponent. He's never been knocked out. He's been stopped on his feet by good fighters, but he's a tough, durable guy. And you know, it's a big test for Conor, but I think, you know, the way he's looking in the gym, I believe that it will come through the fight and in good fashion.
Another fight that we're, expecting to be announced soon, Craig Richards against Dmitry Bivol, rumoured to be for the WBA light heavyweight title. First and foremost, what an opportunity for Craig Richards if indeed that fight does happen.
Yeah, obviously my brother trains Craig, he trains Craig, but he trains at my gym. And I mean, Craig's improved massively as well. I mean, he was a big underdog against Shaq and Peters, and I don't really know why he was, because he had all the experience of fighting, you know, like he fought Buglioni early in his career, and he's fought a few good fighters, you know, and he's developing in our gym all the time, sparring with good fighters all the time, and, you know, as you see, he's heavy-handed, and, you know, he's just done a good destruction job on Shaq and Peters, lifted that British title. And now, as you say, it looks like he's going to get the Bivol fight, which is a massive step up into world level for him. But you can never... when someone can punch, they've always got a puncher's chance in any fight. So you can never, you know, although he'd be a big underdog in the fight, you can't count Craig out.
What's going on with John Ryder, Tone? We've been waiting, and obviously he's another one who's kind of been floating around that world level. Won't he get this fight, that fight, the other? What's the latest with John?
Yeah, I'm going to speak to Eddie within the next hour here. I've just been waiting to speak to him now, but he's doing about 1 million interviews, as you can see. And
join the queue, Tony.
Yeah, you can't. Once the camera's on him, mate, you can't get him away from the camera, can you? Yeah, so once he's finished all his interviews, which will probably be about 10 o'clock tonight, I'll have a chat with him, because he's been ordered to fight the Cuban David Morrell for the WBA regular title. Obviously, PBC promoters of Morrell, and negotiations have been going backwards and forwards between Eddie and PBC. But until I speak to him today, I don't know how them negotiations are going. Now, I think Eddie said to me before, there's a month before it goes to purse bid, so I don't know how long it may be. The month's going to be up soon. So as I say, I've got to speak to Eddie today and find out exactly where that fight is.
And just finally, before I let you go, always appreciate your time. We are, of course, here for Lawrence Okoli's maiden WBO, maiden world title fight, a vacant WBO cruiserweight title fight against Krzysztof Glowacki. How do you think he's going to get on?
I think it's going to be a very difficult fight. Obviously, Glowacki has been in with a lot of good fighters. You know, Usyk beat him on points, and that tells you everything. You know, he's a good fighter. Obviously, a durable fighter. He's been world champion. He's experienced at this level. Whereas Lawrence is not experienced at this level. But Lawrence is a very awkward man to beat. He's a big cruiserweight. He's carries power in both hands, and he's more than capable of lifting this world title on Saturday night. And I hope he does. He's a nice guy, Lawrence, and I'd like to see him do it. But it's not an easy fight. You know, it's going to be an hard fight, and you know, the more the rounds go, the more deeper he gets into the fight, the more harder it'll get. So, you know, I'm backing Lawrence to win it, but he's in a hard fight.
I knew I'd get a prediction out of you sometime in this interview, Tony. Always a pleasure catching up with you. Thanks very much for speaking to Boxing Social. I'm sure I will catch up with you next week ahead of Ted Cheeseman's bout with Jj Metcalf, the Rumble on the Rock. As always, real pleasure. Thanks very much for speaking to Boxing Social.
Thanks, Rob. God bless, mate.